How are you today? I'm happy and very glad to see you. This afternoon, I had a very interesting conversation. So that was with a large company, and we were talking about carbon offsets and the carbon offsetting program. And the more I talk with them, the more I realize how much I do not know about this program and how little I actually realize that we can do to bring in finance that we need. And I thought actually, if I'm having this conversation and if I'm actually very hesitant, I know you can see a bit of sun. Don't worry about that. Let's carry on. So, and I was wondering actually, if I'm having all those conversations and all those questions I'm asking to myself, so how much do you know about carbon offset? And I then decided to have these open discussions, yeah, the open reflection, I call it, so that you and I can discuss about that and share how much we know about this carbon offset thing. Exactly. And this is precisely what I want to discuss with you in this video. So just before I carry on, so allow me to introduce myself for those of you who still do not know me. My name is Tony Tiu, and I'm the founder and CEO of Renewables in Africa. And the idea of our channel is very simple. We want to demystify the renewable energy sector for you so that it make it seamless and easy for us to connect. Whether you are a financier, maybe you're thinking, okay, I have money that I want to pour into the sector. Like maybe it would be the case in this particular topic, but I just don't know, what is the entry point. I just don't know how can I connect, with the industry in order for me to get the information I need and then to decide whether or not this is an industry I can invest in, this is an industry I can believe in. Or you may be a company, you saying same thing. I have operations, I've been running in fossil fuel, but I like to dive into the sector to see, first of all, how can I use it to offset some of the high energy prices that I'm going through, and also how I can contribute to reduce my carbon footprint. Or you may be saying, I'm a professional, I'm working in another sector. I want to get into renewables energy and I want to understand it. I just don't know from what angle I can actually get in, from what door I can go and knock in. So in here on Renewables in Africa, the whole point of our platform is to demystify that for you. So from wherever you're coming from, you have an answer. And if you don't have an answer, reach out to me personally. And I can make sure that, I can do my best to support you. And what we asking you to do, it's very simple, three things. Number one, I like you to subscribe to all our platform, all our channel, because actually we are broadcasting from 5 platforms. I will usually do. We have our LinkedIn, we have our YouTube, we have our Facebook, we have our Twitter, and we have our Telegram. So essentially, we are talking to you through many platforms, right? Sufficient platform. So there's no reason whatsoever for you to actually say that you do not know how to engage. So clearly, I want you and I'm asking you to engage with us and to tell us what that you want to hear, or maybe what you do not want to hear, right? And that's good. So the second thing I like you to do is to leave a message. Leave a comment, leave a message. Tell us what you think. Tell us what you like. Tell us what you do not like in the platform, and we do our best to address that. We appreciate it anyway. Your feedback is very valuable to us, and in fact, we love criticism when there is any. Right? We love it. That's the only way we can improve. The third thing that I want you to do is to share continuously our video. Share that because there's many people out there, they would love to have the information, to just don't know where to go to get this information. If you are lucky enough to be following us, I promise you there are some people, they still don't know that we exist. So I'm counting on you to make sure that you do your job. That's the low hanging fruit that you can do to contribute to setting up and pushing the momentum, right? And I'm hoping that as I speak to you, many of you will actually be listening and be receptive, right? So I would appreciate that. So now I want to come into this conversation about carbon offset. And like anything else, so as I'm diving into the conversation, I first of all want to define the term, right? Because there are many of you who would be as ignorant as I have been, and I still am, right? Because like I said, there's so many things that I just don't understand clearly about this industry, but I could feel and I could see that there's something there. How do I know that? And why do I know that? It's because this idea has been popping into my mind every time. And I thought there must be something into it. There must be something to it. First of all, there's a gentleman called Horatio. I think about 2 years ago, he approached me, talking to me about what they're doing and figuring out whether we could have some project that could qualify for the program. Yeah. The second time, there's another gentleman that I know very well, which is Terry Osmunden, who runs a company, I think it's in Empower, and the impact investors. Same thing. I think he's even published some article on LinkedIn about that. And you may want to look at it. I don't have the link, but you may want to look at it if you look out for him. And then I had this conversation with this company this afternoon. As I was talking to them, it's a large company. Obviously, I can't name them just to preserve the privacy. But as I was talking to them, first of all, I realized and I was happy to see how much easy it was to actually engage with them. Probably because as well they on the lookout for things that we may be able to help with, right? And that's what set my mind into motion even more. And I decided that let's have this open reflection, you and I. So I can tell you what I know, which is little at the moment. I can tell you what are the questions I'm asking myself. There are many, and you can tell me what you think as well about the topic. So what do I know about carbon offsetting or carbon offset, right? So usually we call it as well carbon offset credit. I know those are two terms that are used interchangeably, right? So, but they may mean slightly different things, but that's what we tend to use that for. So, as you can hear, when we're talking about carbon offset, usually it refers to a reduction greenhouse gas emissions, right? Or looking at the way we can increase carbon storage through different means, like for example, land restoration, planting of trees. That's what you see, right? And you use that to compensate for emission that occur somewhere else. So that's where the term offset is coming from. And that carbon offset or carbon offset credit has become a financial instrument that, first of all, even before it becomes a financial instrument, right? So the instrument needs to be certified by government or independent certification bodies for that to be recognized. Once it's recognized, it becomes a financial instrument because it will actually go into a certain number of places, market, where it's be given its value because that credit usually represents an emission reduction of 1 metric ton of CO2. So every time it becomes a commodity, every time you purchase a credit, right? If you purchase like 100 credit, you know that you're having an equivalent of 100 metric ton of CO2 that you are offsetting. You could see where it's going, right? And it's becoming quite interesting for people. Yeah. So meaning that when you have actually somebody, a purchaser of this offset credit, that person, that company can now claim, right, that they having underlying reduction towards their own greenhouse gas reduction goal, right? So you can see the potential and possibly also the challenges, right? But this is actually what I am talking about. And the reason as well, I'm saying that it's very much an interesting topic because the uh, carbon offset market is a huge market and it keeps on growing, right? At the moment, its value of roughly about $260 billion a year. So, and it's keep on growing. Why is it keeping on growing? Simply because the regulation is becoming more and more stringent. And obviously the need to accelerate, the fight against climate change. Not later than, I think it was yesterday or the day before, you had the Secretary General of the UN, Antonio Guterres. They released a report, and the report was saying that the world is going in the wrong direction in terms of emission reduction, right? So you can imagine it's going to be even more pressure for people to act. So are we going to go all of a sudden back to the right direction? I'm not sure. At least the way it's looking at the moment, it looks increasingly unlikely. Hopefully, things will change. However, one thing is sure, is for certain, is that this is going to have an impact. This is going to have an impact on the carbon market, right? And the carbon market, you have essentially two types. I know it's a $260 billion market, but you tend to have two types. You have the voluntary market and you have the compliance, right? So I may actually do another video where I'm going a little bit more deeper into that. But you have the voluntary and the compliance. That's, and obviously the term speak for themselves. But what I wanted to also share with you, because those are the few remarks that I have been doing very quickly. Sorry, few remarks. Apologies. I'm talking about the few research that I have been doing and I'm sharing with you to get to pass on the information. And what I've seen, there was an interesting article from the Financial Times. Let me see if I can share the results with me, and then at least you can see that as well for yourself. No, okay. If I share, I will look at the tab. Okay, brilliant. I think what you could see, it's an article from the Financial Times, and it's quite interesting. Let me just show you a couple of pictures that I found very interesting. Because what we look at, we're looking at that was 2019, so we're talking about 3 years ago, not that long ago. And what we're seeing here, so you can see MTCO2, that's metric ton CO2. It's the most popular type of voluntary offset. And look at that. So renewable energy is quite far ahead. And then you obviously have forestry and land use. That's for carbon storage. But look at renewable energy. It's quite significant, right? And if you look at the value in terms of medan, per tons of CO2, you can see 1.4, 4.3, so on and so forth, right? You could see obviously forestry at the moment. That's probably where you have the uh, the biggest amount of money going to. Why? Because I guess as opposed to going to a project where you have to get the permit, have different step, it's a little bit easier for people just here. We're going to be planting trees, right? So again, you can see the opportunity, but also the potential challenges. But for now, let's look at renewables energy, forestry land use, and so on. So waste disposal, household device, and so on and so forth. This is where the most popular type of projects tend to go through, right? So definitely the first three you're talking about, the first two, forestry land use and also renewables energy, and then you have waste disposal. Yeah, but the first two clearly is far ahead, right? So that's what we're seeing, and that's what that money is being distributed into, right? With those 60 billion dollar I talked about. Now, if we're looking at that a little bit down, what we can the locations where you have the voluntary offset markets. You have USA far ahead, then you have India, China, three top country, and Turkey. Those are the three top countries, right? Countries. Yeah. This is where the money seems to be going. And I'm talking about 260 billion. Look at that. So 20%, that's 22% the US, then almost 20% India, 13% that's for China. So 20% the US, and we're talking about 260 billion. What does that mean? So it means that if you're talking about now the US market, you're talking about something like more than 50 billion a year, right? This is not negligible, right? But what clearly you can see there here, there's some emerging market here that are missing. I can't see, for example, here any African market. And this is where, right, I started asking myself the question, you know, figuring out, is it something missing here, right? So how come we're not tapping into that? Africa will not be the only one. There's many other places, right, that can benefit from that, but we're not seeing it. So that's why I start thinking. And I start wondering, yes, these guys reaching out to me, clearly they could see that. They could see that there was something here we're not tapping into, and we need to be looking at a little bit more seriously. Yeah. Especially us, we all complaining about the fact that only 2% of investment going into the sector actually reaches Africa, right? But the continent needs about more than 100 billion a year, right? So to really develop. In fact, we say 30 billion, but when you look at that, it's even more than that because if you add the generation, but also the transmission part, we get far, far, far above that. So how are we going to generate this money? So we clearly acknowledge that what we have as current method to generate the money are not enough. So we need to look at other way of bringing up this money. And that's why the carbon offset all of a sudden seem to be very, very interesting. And the interesting point, right, that I want to get into, maybe I want to sort of round up and finish up my talk about that. is the fact that these companies who are clearly involved, very heavily involved in the carbon offset market, they're looking for, projects. They're looking for places where they can engage, places, yeah, where they can engage and where obviously they can deploy this capital. Because what they're looking for is for places that are going to give them the carbon. You give me the carbon, I give you the money. Yeah, it's a good and fair trade. That's the way things are looking. And if you now look at places like the African continent, clearly I would argue the potential, the possibility to, you know, design projects are huge, are huge. The challenge though is that, and that's where I'm going to talk about maybe a couple of challenges I can see very quickly, is that people do not know enough, don't even know properly about this market. It seemed quite far. You could see that for the location where this project going. In the African continent, for example, we're still not talking enough about that. People like Terry, I think they are sort of the pioneers, talking about that. We're not talking too much about that. We don't know about enough about it. Yeah. So that means that there is a level of awareness. And this is why, for example, I'm talking to you today. There's a level of awareness that one needs to have to say, hey, this is something that could be done there. The second challenge that I see as I'm talking to, because like I said, this afternoon, no later than that, I was talking to one player that I could see is clearly they have as well criteria that project needs to meet. Remember, this guy, for them to get a credit, they need to go through accreditation process, right? So it's not easy. And those accreditation processes, you clearly need to be able to tick certain boxes for you to be able to claim the credit that you are claiming. And clearly, we're not talking about small demand here. So we want to have sizable project for people to be able to collect credit that's going to be worth something on the market, right? So, and one of the time that company identified, yeah, and that's for example, the company I was talking to this afternoon. There was something we were looking for. They were interested by various developers that are doing such a project, and guess what? Aggregators. Why aggregators? Simply because one of the challenges that we see that maybe looking at that from the continent is we don't have the minimum size required as per the current market requirement. As per the current market requirement. So that means for us to meet that, you need somebody that's going to bring the project together, stick them together, and then embark into such a process. And then again, let me mention another challenge that I see, right? So I talked about the fact that first, people don't know about that. Second, you need to look at projects that are sizable enough. The third thing that I could say is, for those projects to be sizable enough, the person needs to have the knowledge, need to have the knowledge about how the processes, the procedures work in order for you to get certified. There is a whole knowledge base that needs to be developed there, right? So you clearly need to acquire those competence, and this is not something easy, right? You need to get it done. Yeah. So one thing that people are struggling, and the fourth thing I can see, yeah, apart from what I've mentioned, it's simply the fact that I also think that, and that's what I've communicated to the group I was talking to this afternoon, that those rules are probably not adequate, right? Not actually fit for purpose for some region. They've been designed, many of them, to embrace certain markets. Yeah, obviously you're talking about the mature markets, Western market, but also some market like China, India, that's kind of far ahead. Yes, but many other places, because people don't have the level of sophistication needed, but yet again, they have huge potential, right? So clearly you can see there's a mismatch there. There's a gap. There's a gap there. So they probably also need a little bit of effort from those markets to adapt it from those for this region. So clearly, yes, I agree. There's a lot of work that needs to be done there. But one thing is for certain: the more you know, the drums gonna be rumbling, about climate change. They need to take for action, and because now, as we moving forward, company, and I've said that before, and I say that again, as we moving forward, company will have to face heavy penalties if they're not taking sufficient aggressive enough measures to show that they're doing what they should be doing to also reduce their carbon footprint. They're going to be paying heavy, heavy fines, right? So now the question becomes, where do you want to suffer? Do you want to get the fine, or do you want to invest now, either direct into renewables energy, either, as people would say, into those projects that can give you the offset that you need, right? So, and that's maybe the last criticism that I've heard. It's kind of a little bit valid as well, yeah. But I can see why people would do that. Is that people also complain that the carbon offset, it's not yet such a great measure, yeah, simply because how can I say that? It doesn't really incentivize companies to do whatever they want to do, to do everything they need to do to properly and directly reduce the carbon footprint. They are just piggybacking on somebody else, and constructing those projects. And for them, they keep on polluting just as they've been doing. And if you're doing that, the question becomes, are you going to be building, or are you going to be enabling big enough and fast enough projects to properly offset your current consumption? Because if you're not changing anything, so your path is just keep on growing, right? So it may not be sustainable there, yeah. And also just doesn't really get you into the habit, into the thinking of developing something that is sustainable, forcing you, or not forcing you, encouraging you to do the right thing. That's what people are saying, yeah. But in conclusion, what I'm simply gonna say is clearly, I'm a strong believer of taking action, right? But I also know that we have to be practical. I would love for people to be, like I say, responsible enough to start reducing their efforts in order to bring down the level of greenhouse gas emissions. However, we're living in the reality, right? And I know that, looking at, for example, what Antonio Gutierrez has said, we're on the wrong direction. For us to go fast enough, if these companies that are struggling to take the right drastic action to reduce things right now, whoa, if they can pay their way into it and other people are fast enough, big enough, and can build, for example, I'm sure, a company like us, we will love it. Yeah. We have project, definitely feel free. So we're happy to discuss people. So if these guys, because they can't take action for whatever reason they struggle, and I can imagine they really struggle because if you've been relying on the system for the last 50, 100 years, all of a sudden changing that is not that easy, right? So you have the legacy system that is there, that's stopping you from going as fast as you would ideally like to be. Yes, find a way to support people that can, bring that change fast enough, and in order to help you to mitigate that. So if for me, what I'm simply saying is for me, it's not ideal, but if it allowed us ultimately to move a lot faster and allow as well, Africa, for other places as well, to move into this direction and to get what they need to be able to develop a project, I take it, right? I take it. It's not ideal. I hope it will change soon. I hope we're going to work towards it. But if carbon offset seems to be a way, I definitely want to have a look at it. So what I'm probably going to do is having a deeper look into this matter so that we can discuss it more in details at another live, right? So that's what I wanted to say. I just wanted to have that open reflection, and I'm interested to find out what is your own opinion about carbon offsets. What do you think about it? Are you for or against carbon offsetting? Do you happen to be somebody very knowledgeable about that? I'd like to talk to you if that's okay. I'd like to talk to you because I have a number of questions that are in my head. Right? I'd like to talk to you because I like to figure out if there is a way to create something. Is this a way we can engage with you? Because definitely, yes, we have project that we may be involved in, yeah, and I would like to see whether we can help, because it's about bringing the knowledge as well to people that have some of the commodity that you're looking for. So that's what I'm saying. If you happen to know that, definitely reach out, and that'd be good. So I was just gonna stop at this point. I don't know if there is any question. If there's any question, I'd be very happy to respond to that. If there is no question, I think I'm probably gonna cut it today. So I'm just gonna leave it just to say that once again, we're happy and honor to have you guys following us all the time. Sharing our campaign, our content. I'm just gonna say again, if you happen to be watching, if you haven't subscribed yet, do so please. Right now is the time, and also share the message. Leave a comment. Tell me what you think about that. Whether you like it or do not like it. Do you have any topic you want to you want to suggest or not, right? So contribute, and we would love to hear from you and do what we can to also allow your message to be spread out there. Yeah. So that's what I see. I can't see any message that's coming to my screen. Most likely, I'll see that later at another stage. But as usual, it's a delight for me to have this conversation with you. So that open reflection, like I say, so it's very much an open reflection based on the conversation that I've had this afternoon, and then a number of other conversations I've had a few months ago, right? And even a few years ago. So I thought, okay, let's open the floor, let's have this conversation, and let's see what other people think. I'm hoping that in the next couple of days, I'm going to see reflection from people where they're going to be sharing and telling me what they know and they think about this topic, right? Excellent. I believe that's all I had to say for today. Yeah. So I'll probably, not probably, I will reach out. I will meet you again on Friday. So what's happened on Friday is the new show that we launched, which is called Renewables and Money, and it's all about talking about the business of running a renewable energy business. How can you make it work for you? What are the lessons that you need to learn? So what are the tricks that you need to go through? This is what we're talking about. Yeah. So, and I definitely wanted to make it to run it so that I can start addressing some of the questions people that are or used to be like me are going through. Right? Excellent. Pleasure to talk to you as usual. And then I wish you well. And in between then, may the sun be with you guys. Get better.